Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar organized by CYBERSTAND.eu. I'm Teresa Ridolfi from Trust IT Services. We are the coordinators of CYBERSTAND.eu, an initiative funded by the Digital Europe program on mainly supporting, let's say, the development of standards for the CRA. So today we are here with James Philpott from Digital SME and Lucia Lanfri from CEN-CENELEC. This session will be mainly dedicated, let's say, to guide our registrants to how to write a winning SSP application. We will mainly provide some tips and guidelines on, let's say, how to apply to our funding opportunities and let's say, which topics to follow and to address for our specific service procedures. I will now share my screen so that you can also be able to see my slide. So as I was saying, the agenda would be mainly, let's say, structured in three different phases. So we will, first of all, discuss the CRA priorities for the current SSP that it's now open for funding, the sixth SSP, so the sixth funding cycle that will close next Friday on the 16th of May. And Lucia from CEN-CENELEC will here showcase and give us an overview of the main topics that we want to address in this funding cycle. Then I will, let's say, provide some guidelines and mainly on the application form, so on how to apply and also how to structure your application. So we will go through the application together, and we will see the four different sections of the application form and what you would have to include in each of these sections. And then we will have, let's say, a brief introduction from James, who is mainly responsible, let's say, for the monitoring of the project. So once you have been funded, of course, then we will have to monitor your project and the progress in your application. And so James will simply give a brief overview of how this will be done. And then, of course, we will have the Q&A section that I think it's one of the most important parts for this kind of webinars, where you will be able to, let's say, provide your questions and doubts. You can already actually start to ask questions in the Q&A box, and we will try, let's say, to answer them during this session. So as I was saying, yes, the main discussion and presentation points will be on the priorities of the CRA also for this cycle of SSP, but also for the upcoming cycles, because we will also have other cycles after this one. One of the main topics will also be the deliverables that ETSI and CEN-CENELEC are implementing. And in these deliverables, it is actually where we are looking for help and for support. Then, of course, we will also discuss how to register and submit the application, and then how to draft the reports if you are funded in order to, let's say, monitor your project and the progresses that you are making during the project. So at this point, I would say I can leave the floor to Lucia, my colleague, for her presentation. So please, Lucia, the floor is yours, if you want to share your screen.
Many thanks, Teresa, and thank you everyone online for having joined us today. I'm going to share a set of slides, and we will be sharing this with you at the end of the meeting. And this is very important because we want to highlight where we would like to see most of the applications, because we have certain timelines and topics that we need your expertise, and therefore it's important that the applications are well in line with those expectations as well. So here I'm going to be representing CEN and CENELEC. but you will see also that the standards are not only being developed at CEN and CENELEC, but also at ETSI. So please keep that in mind as well, but I'm not representing ETSI in this moment. So who we are, just in case, is very important for you that you will be aware that you, with your application in CYBERSTAND, are going to be working for CEN, CENELEC, or ETSI. We are CEN and CENELEC, 2 out of the 3 European standards organizations. And we are officially recognized, the 3 organizations, as a European Standards Organization. There is a regulation, the Regulation 1025, where these and the standardization activities are recognized, and there are a number of rules and provisions on the standards. The standards, the harmonized standards that CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI then can develop can help manufacturers to comply with legislations, European regulations. We will see that in a moment, but these are all very important aspects that you will be aware. You don't need to be a standardization expert, but we do expect awareness of the work that is taking place. So that's why we are happy to give you additional introduction. Sorry for some of you, maybe a little bit repetitive if you already know it. So what we will be doing for the Cyber Resilience Act is to develop harmonized standards. So who can develop harmonized standards? Only CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI. And so for you to know how this works, the European Commission sends a standardization request to CEN and CENELEC, or ETSI also in this case. And we will be then making sure that the standardization request, after conversations with the Commission, reflects, of course, the regulatory objectives. We will be producing documents that will be assessed by the Commission so that the documents are well in line with the regulation. They have to provide legal certainty, as after all, the harmonized standards. And once they are approved, they can be cited in the European Journal of the official journal of the European Union, and they can offer presumption of conformity for European regulations. So this is not only for the Cyber Resilience Act, but in general, you may know that this is possible for many regulations as per the new legislative framework. A harmonized standard then will be a document, a European standard, so it will be developed by the European standard organizations, and it will be created then following this standardization request that comes from the European Commission. So the European Commission asks particular deliverables to CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI in this case, and then we will develop the standards according to that instruction, let's say. So that's very important for you to know that we are working with that in mind. It's also very important for you to remember that, of course, that the harmonized standards that we are working on are not mandatory. Their use is completely voluntary for industry, but however, they have a very important role because manufacturers, economic operators, conformity assessment bodies really can use the harmonized standards to demonstrate that the products that we are placing on the market after the CRA, in this case, is in force, will be compliant with all of the requirements. Of course, no one is mandated to use the harmonized standards. Everyone is free to choose other methods. So this is also important for you to know. However, there are not at the moment any existing standard that will be completely up to date to comply with the Cyber Resilience Act. So what we are doing right now with the standardization request that we have received from the European Commission, we have the topics in mind. We have the regulation, the Cyber Resilience Act, and then we try to see where is it that we need to create the new documents. Maybe you have to sometimes update existing frameworks or make, let's say, a gap analysis to see where is it that the Cyber Resilience Act needs this to be complemented in the new documents that we will be developing. So here I will then show you a little bit what is requested and in that standardization request. What is a work program? So how is it that we have? You can think of this in the terms of a project. So the European Commission has trusted us with the task of developing these standards. So we need now to present how we're going to deliver this. what are the timelines for that, and how will be the work organized in CEN-CENELEC and in ETSI. These are very important contextual questions for you, because in your application, because you are going to be writing proposals on how to contribute to the development of harmonized standards, then it's important that you really understand that this is exactly what we are doing right now, and that this is our main objective, to respond to the harmonized standards requested by the Commission. A standardization request normally looks a little bit like this. This is an annex only, but it's a slightly longer document. It's important that you, as I said, you don't need to be a standardization expert, but we do expect some awareness of the context. So it's important, if you wish to take a look, here I leave you the link, and it's also in the SSP webpage as well for your availability. And basically, it's a table that requests particular standards. So from here, we can organize the work. So we can assign according to the expertise in CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI. We can distribute the different items that have been requested to the different technical committees that we already have in CEN and CENELEC. So we don't need to create, in this case, new projects and imagine new projects, but we already know what we need to deliver. So we are working on this directly, and we have deadlines to fulfill. So these deadlines are to 2026 in August for some of them in October 2026, and then only a few in 2027. So this is our main compass at the moment. So the list of standards, the deadline, and with that, we are organizing our work. This is a little bit of a scheme, because now I want to make a little bit a link between the CRA, the Cybersecurity Act, and the request standards. So we will have a number of horizontal standards covering, so I will come back to the previous slide. So in this Annex 1 of the standardization request, we see that there are 41 lines entries in this table. So from the line 1 to the line 15, these are horizontal standards. And then we have a number of vertical standards, what we call. And vertical standard in this context mean that they are product-specific standards. So there are a number then of deliverables that have been requested. Some of them are for CEN-CENELEC, and some of them are for CEN-CENELEC and ETSI. So here you will have access also in the webpage of CYBERSTAND to what we presented as the work program. So what we did was to take the Annex 1, the table of the standardization request, and we did a lot of discussions and analysis on how we need to distribute this work between CEN and CENELEC and ETSI. So now we have that work that is finalized, and that means that for each of the entries of that annex that you saw, we have linked a technical committee. For example, here you see the CEN-CENELEC JTC 13 Working Group 9. We are going to go to that in a moment, what it means is. And here you can see where it's the work going to be developed. So you have exactly line per line, and even, for example, some entries like the line 20 has a split, because here there will come 2 standards, for example, to respond to that line. Between line 2 and 14, there will be only 1 standard. So it doesn't mean that only one-to-one correlation. But the main message for you here is that for each of the topics, or each of the standards title, first of all, we already have a standard title and a scope that will need to be followed. And also we have a technical committee where you will be expected to be joining to develop, to help with the development of the harmonized standards. So let's say, imagine you are interested in the line 16, personal identification, related personal devices, your expertise is here. So what you can do is to propose a project that will be a concrete contribution to the development of this standard. And where you're going to work, who are going to be your colleagues? Well, you will have a working group that is already existing, in this case in CEN, and the experts there will be working together with you, and you will have to bring your contribution and your expertise in participating in meetings, in discussing in the current developments. So these are all starting. These projects are starting now, and we really are looking for experts who can bring their knowledge. You don't need to be a standard expert, because we do have standardization experts in the technical committees, and we have ways to support you. But with your technical knowledge that you will have, you can join us and then contribute, participating in the many discussions and helping with contributions, with drafting concrete input to the standard. So I hope this is starting to become a little clear how the flow goes. So we have the Cyber Resilience Act, we had the standardization request, we have to respond precisely to the standardization request, and we have a work program that we have proposed to the Commission, where we have identified exactly what technical committees in CEN-CENELEC or ETSI are going to be working on this. We have also a timeline. So you saw before we had a deadline for each of the entries. So that means that so by October, let's say 2026, except some that were requested in August, for example, we will have to be ready. So that means the deadline means the standard ready to be published. But before we're ready with the standard to be published, there are many, many steps that need to take place. So there are some drafting, of course, so some consensus building. Imagine we're building a complex document and that needs to receive input from many stakeholders. We need to consolidate it in the template and in the formats that standards have, so very complex all. And then we will send it to a public inquiry. This is a normal process for each standard development, because after a public inquiry is the possibility for anyone, basically any stakeholder, to provide feedback on the standard development. Then the feedback needs to be incorporated in the standard, and then needs again to be consolidated and again be dispatched for a second vote. And the vote is a vote between the CEN and CENELEC members. And if it goes positive, then the standard can be published. So it's a lengthy procedure, but if you see, actually, there are the public inquiry, for example, lasts 3 months always. The formal vote, the final vote, lasts 2 months. So you see that between now, May, and October or August, there are not so many months available for the actual drafting of the standard. So we advise you in your proposals to take this strongly into account, because the heavy, let's say, workload will happen here in this period. This is where now we actually need a lot of help. We need a lot of experts who can join us and ensure that we can dispatch the draft for inquiry, because if you do some sort of a retro planning from October and August, and then you easily can deduce that to meet these deadlines, we cannot submit, we cannot achieve a draft of the standard later than November, December this year. So all contributions or more or stronger contributions and dedications are expected soon, and very, very much between the months that will follow now. You saw that in the work program image that I was showing before, and again, I repeat that you will be able to download this and consult it. That's publicly available. I was mentioning a lot technical committees. The standards have a technical committee. We're working on that already. So this is because the work is organized in a technical committee manner, and under each technical committee, there are working groups. And each working group simply has a dedicated scope. That's why it's easy when we have certain topic, we give it to a group of experts, and that's what I mean. Maybe in case you're not familiar with the jargon, let's say technical committees are the way we're organizing our work. So therefore, for each of the lines or each of the standards that have been requested to us, we already have found the technical committee, and you are expected to join those ones and participate actively then in the meetings with the concrete proposal. As I was saying before, there are many steps for the standards making, and it's a lengthy procedure, as you saw in my timeline. And these are fixed steps, fixed milestones, and therefore, as I want to repeat, the deadlines are very important, and it's also important to understand that the contributions are urgently needed from now until the end of the year mostly. Then there will be also some drafting opportunity, but let's say, the main draft will be shaped now until the end of the year. So we really encourage that you consider that when you're drafting your application, because you need to reflect that you understand that you're going to be working for a harmonized standard that has a deadline, that has already a framework around, and has already a technical committee that will be working together with you. You're not expected to be working in isolation. You will be expected to join the meetings and participate actively. Here, I want to show you then a little bit the same documents I showed you before. I'm going to try to come here and share again the screen. What happens if we go to the SSP website? So if we go there to this to the SSP, and here I'm going to be asking Teresa to check if my screen is being shared with the SSP.
Yes.
Thank you. So here it's very important, and that's why the colleagues from CYBERSTAND included these very important links. You need to be familiar with the standardization request, because as it's encouraged applications, here is clearly stated, we expect contributions to the harmonized standard to support the activities of CEN-CENELEC work program. So this is very, very specific what the contributions are expected. And if you click here, the work program, and here, Teresa, I'm going to ask you again to check that I'm opening the work program. This is what you saw in my slide. Thank you. This is what you saw in my slide before. So here you can really zoom in a lot. And you will see all of the deliverables that we will be working on. So here until line 41 are the topics that are the priority. From line 16 to line 41 are the topics that are priorities. I'm going to come back to my slides now. I just wanted to show you that the document is available and that all the information I'm sharing now, of course, with less explanation, is available on the webpage of the CYBERSTAND SSP application. So I'm going to come back now to my presentation to do a summary of the priority topics. Because of the timelines, we are not expecting any more contributions on the horizontal standards, because these are already well advanced. We are expecting contributions of the vertical standards. So the product-specific ones, the ones started on the line 16 that I mentioned before. And here you can have a scope, let's say, what are the different technical committees going to be working on. Personal identification, this is the name of the technical committee, the TC, but these are the standards. Then we have a number of industrial and the OT part of the different deliverables based on the EN/IEC 62443-4-2. So this is very concrete as well. So if you happen to have the expertise on any of the OT deliverables that you will find in the work program, please know that it will be specifically based on the EN/IEC one. Then for smart meters, gateways as well, this is a priority topic for us. And anything between for the semiconductors, line 37, 38, etc. But also please note that the ETSI priorities, I said I'm not representing ETSI, but I would like to say that the ETSI topics are also a priority. So any deliverable that you see in the work program linked to the ETSI TC Cyber, basically topics between the line 17 and 36 of the standardization request. So those are also priority. If you have the expertise there and you would like to join the ETSI TC Cyber for any of the deliverables, do not hesitate to write your proposal around those topics as well. So if you have any questions for the ETSI part, contact the ETSI support. If you have any question from the CEN-CENELEC, you can contact me for the technical part. But this is, in a nutshell, that I hope this was a good balance between not too repetitive, but also not too much information in the way that if you are new, that you can understand that we are working on the work program. That here I will come back to my work program, that we're working on the work program, that we expect concrete contributions, that you will be joining these technical committees to participate. The technical committees are sometimes small, sometimes they are bigger. People are very welcoming and friendly to new experts. So if you're not part, don't be afraid. These are very friendly groups, and we really need new experts. We need your contributions, and we need you to be there so that we are able to contribute really to standardization request with valuable standards for Europe. So that's very important. So, and bear in mind the timelines, the deadlines, so that the priority now, the big effort is happening right now. So with that, I pass the floor back to you, Teresa, and I thank you everyone for your attention.
Thanks, Lucia. Thanks a lot for your presentation. It was indeed very precise and useful. So let's say, speaking of the practice of how to submit an application, I will now share my screen. So let's say basically the main steps for applying are 4, I would say. So first of all, you have, of course, to go to the website, CYBERSTAND.eu, and register to our website. Once you will have created an account, you will be able to access the dashboard, so the CYBERSTAND.eu platform, where you can submit your application. So this platform is, of course, then a repository where all applications are submitted and also, of course, scored. And also the evaluation part of the applications is happening on the CYBERSTAND.eu platform. Once you have accessed the platform, you can fill in your application form. You can both submit the application directly, or you can also save it in draft and submit it later, of course, before the deadline. So here I would like to add a couple of points. First of all, we have had some changes during these months, so during the project lifetime, in particular in the evaluation process itself, meaning that at the very beginning, let's say, we were waiting for the deadline of each SSP, and then after the deadline, the evaluation process, of course, started. So evaluators had, let's say, more or less around 15 days for evaluating all the applications, and then the results, of course, have been transmitted to the applicants. So now, since, as Lucia was mentioning and also showing, the timeline is, let's say, a bit strict, so we actually need contributions now, so from May to November, more or less, and this is the most important period for the development of these harmonized standards. For this reason, we have decided to speed up a bit the process. And for this reason, the evaluation process is now a continuous process, meaning that if you submit an application today, the 8th of May, for the 6th SSP, which is now open for funding, your application will be set in evaluation. And so the evaluation process will start, let's say, immediately after that you have submitted your application, or let's say after 1 or a couple of working days maximum. So you will also probably receive the results earlier. In this way, we are also able, let's say, to enroll the experts also, let's say, a bit faster, but also with more time for explaining how the work should be done and how we will monitor them. So now, let's say, I will showcase the application form, and we will go through the application form step by step in each section of the application form, so that you will be able also to understand what contributions we need and where you can add them directly in the application form. So now, of course, we are on the CYBERSTAND website. I hope you can see the website. So here you are able, let's say, to find the open funding opportunities under the funding menu. In this case, we have the 6th specific service procedure, as Lucia was mentioning before. which opened the 14th of April and will close next Friday, the 16th of May, at 17 chest. Another recommendation that I want to give to all the possible applicants is to, let's say, not wait until the last minute for submitting the application, simply because it's easier also for us then to check on all the application, but also because you might have some issues in submitting the applications, I don't know, 10 minutes before the deadline, some technical issues, of course. So to be safe, let's say, it's better to submit the application also, of course, on the last day, but maybe not on the last during the last 10 minutes of the SSP. So as Lucia was mentioning, here you will find all the most relevant informations for submitting an application. So first of all, here you will have a redirect to the CRA Standardization Request, and you will be able to download it in English, but also in all the other languages. This is directly the European Commission website. And then you will also be able to check the joint work program of ETSI and CEN-CENELEC with all the standard titles, the topics, the lines of the standardization request and everything. In addition to that, you will also be able to check the guidelines for applicants. So this is a document that we have implemented where you will basically, let's say, find most of the informations for submitting an applications and also the type of contribution, the eligible costs and everything, and also a guide for the funded services. So in case you are funded, here you can find the most important informations that you will need to know for your application. So if you click here, you can directly apply to the 6th SSP, and of course you will be redirected to the login page. In this case, if you already have an account, you can log in. If you have to create a new account, you can click here on create new account, add all your informations, and then you will receive an email for logging into the platform. Now, in this case, of course, I do have already my account. So this is, let's say, how the website will look like once you have logged in to the website. Here, as you can see above on the right, you have the dashboard menu voice. If you click on the dashboard menu voice, you will be redirected to the CYBERSTAND.eu platform. The blue banner means that this funding opportunity is open. So if I now click to the sixth specific service procedure, this is the application form that you have to fill in. First of all, at the very beginning of the application form, we have some basic informations on the eligibility criteria for applying. So since CYBERSTAND, it's a Digital Europe funded program, in this case, the eligible applicants are EU citizens and or let's say members or citizens from the overseas countries and territories and the EEE countries. So in this case, the criteria of nationality is applied. This means that if you are, for instance, a French citizen living in the UK, you can apply as an individual because the criteria of the nationality, of course, is what counts. Of course, if you are working for a UK firm, your firm is not eligible, so you will have to apply as an individual and not through your firm. As you know, for CYBERSTAND, you can apply both as an individual, but also as a company. In case, if you want to apply as a company, let's say the rule is that your legal entity, so your company, has to be established in a European country or one of the associated countries listed above. And also, it's important that your company is not controlled, let's say, from third countries, which are, of course, outside the European Union, because this would exclude your company from the funding. So these are, let's say, the general eligibility rules. that we are applying to the CYBERSTAND specific service procedures. So going in the detail of the application form, of course, at the very beginning, you will have to add the most important information, so let's say, so the title of your contribution, the title of your project. The typo you will have to select the typology of contribution that you want to request. You can have a one-shot contribution that will last for 3 months for a maximum funding of 5,000 euros. You can have a short-term contribution for a maximum duration of 6 months and a maximum requested funding of 10,000 euros. Or you can have a long-term contribution for a maximum duration of 1 year and a maximum amount funded of 20,000 euros. Once you have, of course, chosen this type of contributions, then you will have also to identify the macro areas from your application. So if your contribution is referred to horizontal standards or a vertical standard, in this case, then you can also select the line that Lucia was mentioning before, on which you will be working on, the start and end date, of course, of your project. Here, as you can see, we have also added, let's say, a sentence below saying that we, of course, encourage contribution on horizontal standards in particular to start as soon as possible. Because the idea is that all the contributions on horizontal standards will have to end before June 2025, while on the other side, contributions on vertical standards can start, let's say, or should in any case end not later than November 2025. So for the 6th specific service procedure, we are still, so the ongoing specific service procedure that is now opening, we are still actually looking for contributions also on horizontal standards. But this is the last funding opportunity that you will have for horizontal standards, meaning that from the next funding opportunities on, you will only be able to contribute to vertical standards. Because of course, as mentioned here, let's say we will have reached the deadline for the vertical standards. Of course, here then you can add other informations on your application. And then let's say we go in detail, let's say on the content of the application itself. So here we have 4 main different sections. Section 1, where you will basically, let's say, have to describe the concept, the objective, and the approach of your project. So here we have different questions on, let's say, the objectives and the concept of your proposed contribution. Here it's important to have a specific reference. This is valid actually for all these sections of the application form, but also in particular in the overall concept, to have a specific reference to the standards that you are addressing. So horizontal or vertical, to the line, whatever it is, you need to stress out in this section a reference to these standards. So let's say these are more or less the general questions where you will be able to provide an overview of your contribution and also summarize your expertise in the chosen priority area. So as Lucia was mentioning before, you don't need to be an expert in standardization to, let's say, get funded in this case, but it's very important that you add to this application form both your CV. The CV is actually mandatory, otherwise the application cannot be retained eligible for the evaluation, and also your personal experience in relation, of course, to your project. Moving to section 2, we have, let's say, the section focused on the impact of your application. So in this case, you will have to describe the impact that your contribution will have on the CRA standardization request, and also on European interest, let's say, more in general terms. But the focus, of course, most important is on the CRA standardization request. Then, of course, we also require let's say, a specific question on the reference standards that you are addressing, and also the working group and the technical committees that to which you will contribute, let's say, with this application. In this case, here you have a list. You can select the working group. Please bear in mind that these working groups are those that are already listed in the joint work program from ETSI and CEN-CENELEC. So there is, let's say, no way for applicants to avoid contributions to these deliverables, okay? Because here the listed technical committees and working groups are referred to the joint program. Then we have a question whether you are already involved in one of the following SDOs, and then a specific question on the contribution of the proposed activities to the harmonized standards. And then another question, of course, if you are a representative of one of the above sectors where the CRA standardization request will have an impact. The section 3 is more focused on the other end on the work plan and the timeline of your contribution. So here you will have to describe all the main activities that you want to do during your project. In particular, you have to bear in mind while, let's say, filling in this part of the application form that the activities that are described in this section will be embedded in the corresponding, of course, technical committee or working group that you have selected in section 2. And so the timeline here will have to respect the deadlines that are described in the ETSI and CEN-CENELEC joint program. So this means that if the timeline does not coincide with the timeline of the joint program, in this case, this will be scored, let's say, negatively, because there is of course, let's say the timelines are not the same. And same here in section 3.2, you will have to describe the targets and the contribution specific to the harmonized standards. So also in this case, let's say we have, if you have already applied to our previous funding opportunities, you might see that the applications are a bit different. The application form is a bit different from the previous funded opportunities, funding opportunities, and this is because we have, let's say, somehow adapted the application form to the requests of the SDOs, but also, of course, of the European Commission. So it's also important for us to have a very specific application form with very specific questions so that applicants can also be guided somehow thanks to the application form through the application process. And then in the end, we have the cost section. So also in this case, we have applied, let's say, some changes. We always have, as usual, the personal working effort. And of course, you have to provide a description for each cost item. We have the travel, because of course, if you have to join on-site events, the travel reimbursement is an eligible cost. And let's say we have removed the membership fees and the event fees, because most of the events that you will have to attend for contributing to the CRA standardization request are either hybrid events, so you can also attend online, but in any case are, let's say, free events. Okay, so you don't have to pay a fee for attending them. And that's why we also have removed that cost item. Then we have, let's say, the final questions on whether if you are already or not a member of ETSI and CEN-CENELEC. If you are not a member of ETSI and CEN-CENELEC, then you are also allowed to request the membership fee as an eligible cost for ETSI and CEN-CENELEC. So now the membership fees are, let's say, allowed only for these two SDOs, while before we also had here some other possibilities. So these are, let's say, the three main cost items that you can request in your application form. In the end, of course, you will have to attach your personal CV, which is mandatory, as I want to remind to all of you. And then if you have additional attachments, at the end of the application, then you can add, let's say, a few lines on your proposed contributions that will be used for dissemination purposes. Lucia, I don't know if you want to add anything on the application form.
Thank you, Teresa. I think you did a great summary. It was very clear. I would like to emphasize when you talk about the impact of the project, try to be as precise as possible. Precise doesn't mean short. I mean that when the evaluators will read your contribution, they will understand how this can be of added value, let's say, for a given standard that where you will be offering the contribution. Also, when you talk about your commitment, don't forget that you are going to be working in an existing working group in CEN-CENELEC or ETSI, and that means attendance to meetings, concrete contributions to the drafts. So those are things that you can mention and will reflect that you do have an understanding on how to work with standardization committees, which doesn't mean, and again, really we do want to emphasize that you have to be a standardization expert, but you will need to work with the rest of the group who is working. And lastly, when we talk about the upload of the CV, if you have the opportunity to tailor your CV to show how your expertise is more dedicated to this deliverable, don't hesitate to do it, because what the evaluators will do, they don't know you. So they will read this application form, and if you are proposing to work on a topic, but that's somehow not really reflected in your CV, it's very difficult then for the evaluator to believe that you have the expertise. So maybe you do have the expertise, but it's just that in the CV perhaps it's a little bit lost. So don't hesitate then to tailor your application as much as possible. Thank you, Teresa. You're muted.
Sorry. No, I was saying that before maybe leaving the floor to James, I can answer maybe a couple of questions that are specific on this part. So first of all, there is a question about how many times, let's say, you can apply. The question is, can one entity submit several applications with different topics and different kind of contributions? So I forgot actually to mention this part, which is very important, because basically, let's say the rule that we have in CYBERSTAND is that you can apply and you can obtain a maximum of 60,000 euros for funding. So this means that you can apply and get funded up to 60,000 euros contributions. Of course, these kind of contributions can be, let's say, different. So you can apply as a company or as an individual for one project or one contribution on horizontal standards, and then you can apply also to the same funding opportunity if you want, so also to the same funding cycle for, I don't know, a contribution for a vertical standard. The important thing, as also Sandra is actually stressing out in the chat, is that the two applications are different, are completely different contributions in order to avoid double funding. So this is, let's say, allowed as let's say, as far as the two applications are treating different topics. So we have then a question very specific in the case of applications to work on horizontal standards. The condition that work must be done by November 2025 means 1st November or end of November. Maybe Lucia, you can
Yes,
answer
here,
this.
thank you, Teresa. We don't have a specific date for each of the developments. Ideally, it's the 1st of November, but we know that the projects are in a early development stage, and therefore it can be that as we are working, there are delays, let's say, and we end up working until the 30th of November. But this is a question that now we cannot answer. If you perhaps can propose a date, I think as long as it is in November, it could be fine. And let's say that's not a problem.
Thanks,
Also, I
Lucy.
think maybe if I can compliment Teresa, in the case where imagine in the perfect case where the standard was ready as soon as possible, and you did have some hours left, or that we can still perhaps enjoy your contributions. I'm not sure, Teresa, if there can be a modification in the proposal that the hours that were not used can be used a little bit later.
Yes, indeed. Let's say from the point of view of any changes in the budget, but also in the application form itself, and not in the application form, sorry, in the project itself, we can adapt somehow to eventual requests that are, let's say, not major requests, both in terms of budget and also in terms of content of the proposal itself, if the proposal, of course, has been funded. So yes, in case we can also change or adapt the proposal, the funded proposals.
Thank you. And I think just to complement, I think in the case the standard was ready, the first draft for inquiry, as I showed before, the advanced draft was submitted, let's say, on the 1st of November, but then we would also be aware that the reports you write for your contributions would have been for the 1st of November, even if you propose to work until the 15th of November, right? So that's also, we will also check that your deliverable is well in line with what the working group is working on and the timelines that they are managing.
Thanks, Lucia. We have one last question before giving the floor to James on the eligibility. So as I was saying at the very beginning, you can check the eligibility is based on the nationality of the applicant or the company. So the individual or the company. So if the company is, let's say, within one of the listed EU member states, overseas countries and territories, or EEA countries, then you are eligible. Another thing that you can do for checking whether you are eligible or not, it's actually easier probably when you fill in the application form. As soon as you reach the point of the nationality, here the listed countries are the eligible countries. So this means that if you are not in, if your country is not in this list, then you are not eligible. But in any case, for any other clarification on the eligibility, countries, companies, and whatever, you can also contact us. I will add the email address to which you can write in the chat. And then, so let's say we have one last question on the funding opportunities. So let's say the sixth SSP that is now open for funding and will close on next Friday, the 16th of May, is for contributions on both horizontal and vertical standards. But this is the last funding opportunity that you will have for horizontal contributions. So starting from the 6th SSP on, the 7th, sorry, SSP on, you will only be able to contribute for vertical standards. I think at this point we can leave the floor to James, that will give a brief overview to the, let's say, on the monitoring phase. So once you have been funded, what are, let's say, the next steps? Please, James, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Teresa, and good morning, everybody. This is actually perfect timing because I've just seen Ricardo's question in the chat, so I can answer that now. So I'm from the European Digital SME Alliance. We are another of the partners in CYBERSTAND, and one of our roles is kind of after the application process. So we support and monitor the experts that are selected. So before I get started, I'd just also like to complement one of the answers to the previous questions regarding if you can be funded for multiple different applications. Yes, but we would also check to make sure that the timelines and the efforts are all compatible. So if several of your applications were accepted, we would then need to make sure that you have the capacity to work on all of these and that you wouldn't be exceeding the kind of working daily limits. So this would be done just through a call to discuss to make sure it's all okay. But now to get back to the support and monitoring. So these are two different aspects. Firstly, the support role is to make sure that the selected experts are introduced to the people within the SDOs that they need to be to undertake the work. As Lucia mentioned, we are really encouraging people that aren't already involved with ETSI or CEN-CENELEC to apply and to begin working on standards. And we want to help you to be able to hit the ground running. So this means making sure you know who to contact, the working processes that you kind of are involved in, and how you should be contributing. So the way that we do this is that, so Ricardo, this is speaking to you directly, but also any other funded experts. Once you've signed the contract, I'll get in contact with you and we'll set up a call between myself and whoever the kind of responsible partner is from ETSI or CEN-CENELEC, depending on which working group or technical committee you're joining. And this will be your orientation and onboarding. So there we can explain how you'll be working, the processes within ETSI and CEN-CENELEC, if you need to join them, the quickest way to do this so that we can expedite that process for you as well. And then once this is started, we also provide ongoing information about the status of the work, any kind of background information on the CRA as well. So we're in regular contact with the European Commission and particularly the policymakers there who are working on this. So if there's anything coming from them, we can pass it on to you as well. So the main way we do this is through calls, but we are funding a lot of experts. So we also have a Slack channel for more kind of general messages that go out to everybody. There are mailing lists, but we're trying to move away from this to focus more on using Slack because it's a bit easier to engage with people through that. But the primary touch point will be me and email contact or Slack or calls or whatever. So this is the support aspect. And this begins kind of immediately after you sign the contract. The other part that Digital SME and I'm responsible for is the monitoring of the work. So this happens both periodically throughout the grant period and then at the end as well. And so the main way that we do this is by gathering reports from the experts. And these are intended to detail all of the work that's been done under the grant. And this does come in quite granular detail. So we are asking for you to submit the list of meetings that you've attended, the contributions that you've produced to the standards. This is either in the form of kind of the finalized standard where you can highlight your actual contributions, or if they were draft contributions, you can share them. If you attend any events, as Teresa said, there is budget for this, for the travel. You can explain like kind of the context of these and how they've contributed to the work. And if you take part in any of the standardization community that CYBERSTAND has set up, if you take part in any of these workshops or any activities there, you can also list that. And then, of course, we are interested in the broader context. So if your work has supported any specific stakeholders that the Commission is trying to support with this, so for example, if it affects the open source community or SMEs in particular, you can also detail this. Depending on the length of your grant, it affects how many reports you'll submit. For the 3 and 6 month grants, you can just submit a report at the end and we'll have a status call maybe at the halfway point. But if you have a 12-month grant, then we will have an interim report after 6 months and then a final report at the end of the period as well. So these reports are evaluated by myself and also by ETSI and CEN-CENELEC. So you don't need to worry about sharing anything kind of confidential or anything internal because they will be seen only by the expert who was already in the organization. So you can really share the exact details of your work. And with this, we're able to evaluate and make sure that the grant has proceeded well. The idea, though, is really to show we don't just want to see KPIs and meeting attendance. We want to see what actually happened. So a list of the meetings is not quite sufficient. We also want to see a summary. You can attach the minutes if that's the easiest way. but it's really to make sure that the grant has had an impact and allowed a significant contribution to the standards. This will all be explained in far more detail during the onboarding, so you don't need to have it all memorized now, but just to make you aware that we do have this process in place, both the support and the mentoring, to make sure that the grants proceed as well as possible and that the contributions to the standards are really effective coming from CYBERSTAND. So that's it. It was just a brief kind of overview of this. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to help. And Ricardo, I'll be in contact very shortly.
Thank you, James, for your contributions. We have another question on the next funding batches. So I can share 1 second very quickly. On the website, you are able in the home page to see the timeline of the funding opportunities if you scroll down a bit. So you can see the gray one, of course, are the ones that are already closed. Then we have the 6th one that is now open for funding and will close on the 16th of May, as I was saying. And then we will have the 7th one that will open the Monday, let's say, after the end of the previous one. So we are also having, let's say, the batches open one after the others. So we don't also have that much time between one batch and the other. And the 7th batch will be open from the 19th of May until the 20th of June. After that batch, we will probably open another one. We still have to decide on the dates, but soon we will also have this information and we will also disseminate it, of course, on our website. I don't know if we have other questions. We have one question. Maybe Lucia, you can give a suggestion on this. For the horizontal grant, it is only possible to apply for the duration of 6 months because it should end in November. From a technical point of view, let's say from the application form point of view, you can apply also for 1 year contributions for the horizontal grant. Of course, as Lucia has mentioned in her presentation, we have a timeline which is very precise and we should respect that timeline. So even if the application form allows you, let's say, to have a longer duration, you always have to bear in mind the timeline that has been produced by ETSI and CEN-CENELEC.
Thank you, Teresa. That's indeed very well explained. I would like to add, we know how the deliverables are being drafted, and we know also how advanced they are, right? So imagine you propose a contribution until November, a little bit to what I responded on the previous question from one of the other experts. If somehow the horizontal proposal that you were working on was ready by August, then that would also be linked to your contribution. Now you will have to justify then what happened between August and November, because if the working group somehow was finalized with the work, then it would be quite difficult to explain what happened between August and November then. So in that sense, that's why we try to encourage you, if you can front load all of the work and as much as possible work now in May, June, July, because this is where the work is needed now, right now. So maybe like that, it can be for a long contribution, let's say from now till November, for a 6-month duration, where actually you do all of the heavy lifting in the early months. That could be a solution.
Thanks, Lucia. Just a couple of more questions. So if it's possible to receive a feedback if the application is rejected, yes, indeed, we are actually working on this aspect, meaning that we have also managed to arrange some calls with people that have not been funded in order, let's say, to analyze their application and see what they can improve in terms of content. Of course, we always have to remember that the evaluation is done by a pool of external evaluators that are independent from the project, and also we cannot interfere with their evaluation. This means that we cannot comment or change in any case the evaluation and the content of the evaluation report itself. What we can do is provide support to you for an eventual resubmission of your application. So in case you did not get funded and you want also to set up a call with us to check on your application and see what can be improved, you can always write to the email address that I have added in the chat, web@cyberstand.eu, and we will reply to you as soon as possible, and maybe we can arrange somehow, let's say, a mentoring call. As for the payments, it depends, let's say, on the length of your project. So if you, as James also was mentioning, you have to submit reports. So payments are connected to the reports. So as soon as you submit your report, you will be able to be paid. In case you have a long-term project that is 12 months, you can also do an interim report, and we can pay you after you have submitted the interim report, so at month 6. Otherwise, for short-term and one-shot grant opportunities, you will receive the payments after you will have submit the final report, so at the end of your project. So I think we have checked all the questions. Just before closing the webinar, I wanted to inform all of our audience that we are actually organizing an annual event that will take place in Brussels in Auto World. It will be hybrid, so you will also be able to attend it online if you want, but also on site. And the annual event will be held on the 19th of June. We already have the registration form actually open for this annual event. So if you are interested and you want to register to the event, you can already do it. The agenda is still in process, but soon you will also have the full complete agenda available. But in case you already want to reserve your spot, you can already register. I will now share here the link for the registration. I don't know if we have any other questions or comments. James or Lucia, if you want to add anything else. Okay, let me just share in the chat the link for the registration for our annual event. In this case, if we don't have any other questions, I think we can close the webinar. So I would like to thank both the panelists, so James and Lucia, for joining and for the nice explanation, and also our audience. Of course, the registration of the webinar and also the slides presented will be available on the website in the upcoming days. So thanks everyone for attending, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks.